You're listening to the official podcast of Bloodstock Open Air Festival. Bloodstock Radio.
Yes, hello, good evening, and welcome to Bloodstock Radio, the official podcast of the Bloodstock Open Air Festival. My name is Squatter, this is podcast number 86, and we opened you up there with a brand new track from Hatebreed. That's called When the Blade Drops, and I actually think that's a standalone single. I don't think that's going to be on the new album, so that's just something they've just put out there to keep us all going. And they are, of course, going to be joining us at Bloodstock 2020. They're going to be the very last band of the weekend as the Sophie Stage headliners on the Sunday, and what a way to end the weekend that is going to be. Okay, since the last podcast, we've had another 2 band announcements, consisting of another 13 bands, which takes us up to a nice round 50 bands announced for Bloodstock 2020 so far. So the first announcement was 7 bands, and they were Acid Rain and Svalbard will play the main stage on the Friday, with Idle Hands playing that stage on the Sunday. And then over on the Sophie, on Friday, we're going to have Viscera and Soen as the special guests to the already announced headliners Bloodywood. And then on Saturday, we're going to have Dog Tired and Baylor also on the Sophie as well. And then for the second announcement, we had another 6 bands announced. So opening the main stage on the Saturday will be Savage Master, and on the same day we'll have Italian band Sharks in Your Mouth over on the Sophie. Then on Sunday, also on the Sophie, and getting you all warmed up for Hatebreed, we'll have another Italian band, Blasphemer, Liberty Lies, Black Tongue, and all the way from Bury, the Mighty Pissed. So that is you all up to date with the latest band announcements, and we're going to be hearing some music from one of them later on in the show as well. But next up, it's time for our big feature interview. So last week I caught up with my friend Connor Marshall from Conjurer, who has also recently been announced as joining Silosis. And as it happens, both of those bands happen to be playing the main stage of Bloodstock this year. So let's hear what Connor has to say about that.
The big interview.
Okay, next up on Bloodstock Radio, we are having a chat to Connor from Conjurer. Hello, mate, how you doing?
I'm not too bad, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, yeah, not too bad. Yeah, getting back into the swing of these podcasts again. We've got a few months to go still, but lots of bands announced, and obviously you guys are going to be playing on the main stage, which must be a big thrill for you guys.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. This is very likely to be the biggest show we've ever done, so we're very very happy about it. But it's still a little bit daunting in some ways, and some of it, the more you think about it, the more it's kind of like, oh god, yeah, we are doing that.
You talk about daunting, but some of the things that you guys have gone through, I mean, you're talking about a meteoric rise here, because I can remember seeing you guys before you joined the band, actually, when it was still Andy, you know, playing like really sort of small gigs and small little venues and that, but the buzz about the band even then was really sort of big, and then you entered the Metal to the Masses in 2016, again before your time, but since then, it's just, and that's only 2016, we're only in 2020 now, but meteoric is probably about right.
I mean, like you say, I've got kind of a weird perspective on it because I've been friends with them since before Conjure anyway, and so I used to go to shows and help him out when Andy was playing. And so although I didn't play in those Metal to the Masses shows, I was at a lot of them because I was at university in Leicester at the time.
Yeah.
And again, I'm biased because I'm mates with them all, but it really did feel, even at the time, that it was the right people coming together at the right time and all that sort of stuff. And like watching them even in the early days in those smaller venues at those shows, they were never going to be there forever. And I'm just very fortunate that I've managed to hop on just as Maya was coming out. And yeah, from there, it's all just kind of been like full speed ahead, go, whatever we get offered. For the most part, we've done it. And luckily, people still seem to be interested, and we keep getting like great opportunities through like Sophie Stage Bloodstock, Main Stage Bloodstock, and all this other stuff. And so yeah, we're just very thankful for it and just want to keep going, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, I mean, I would say that the style of music isn't really my thing. I'm more of a thrash fan, really, but
Got it.
But over the few years that I've been sort of doing this, you do sort of expand your horizons a little bit. But Conjurer, it wasn't even just the music, it was just the sort of reaction of people that were in the room. You just got a real buzz that this really was something special. And obviously, I'd say you would have got that. You're allowed to say that from being a fan, from your memories
exactly.
as a fan.
Yeah, we'll say at the moment, especially we're working on the second album now, but when all the stuff was happening with Maya, like it was great because I'm in all the photos promoting it, but I get to enjoy that album as a fan just as much as anyone else. I remember being sent, when they had their pre-production version of it and when they got the first mixes back, being sent all of that and just enjoying it because it's an album of great songs, not because I was anything to do with it, because ultimately I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it's hopefully going to change going forward. We're all writing the second album at the moment, we're all having an input, but yeah, it was very nice to be able to kind of enjoy that as a fan and now step into it and kind of be a part of pushing it forward. So
how are you finding that process now then with writing and that? Are you fitting into that well? Is it started? Is Dan is the main writer, or do you all chip in, or how does it work?
Still, for the most part, yeah. Dan will have the majority of the ideas, and then Jan, the drummer, also has a fair few. But typically the way it's worked before has been, yeah, Dan and Jan between them. Mostly Dan will have the most of the ideas. Jan's then more of the arrangement and structural guy, and between them they'll bash out a song that I guess at the time Brady and Andy will contribute their own stuff. Like I know on the song of Flesh Week of an Ash, Brady contributed a lot to that one. And that's kind of carried over so far into album 2. It is still for the most part riffs and ideas that Dan and Jan have come up with, but we're all chipping in, we're all getting our ideas in, but it's one of those things where if Dan's got a great song and we're just fine-tuning it, I'm not going to try and put my stamp all over it just for the sake of it, because at the end of the day, we just want to put out the best thing as a unit. So although I'm very much hoping to have an input, and we are as we go along, as we're tweaking things, it's not going to be forced. It's not like all of us have to get a writing credit on every single song, otherwise we're not putting it out or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. So you've done a few mixed bag sort of things over the years, the band has. So you've got the couple of, like, the collaboration with Pine,
yep,
and then obviously the covers that you did with Palm Reader as well. I think you publicised that as covers that no one really wanted.
That's basically it, to be honest. Yeah, that whole thing that started with us when we got asked to do a Slipknot cover for It Was Metal Hammer. We're doing one of those things where they're doing a whole Slipknot issue, and they had loads of different bands covering loads of different songs. So we got asked to do a song for that, and so that's the initial reason why we did Vermilion. And then our other cover was Blood and Thunder, which even before I had joined. They used to whack out every once in a blue moon. And so we had those two, and we knew we wanted to kind of maybe release them anyway. And Holy Roar were kind of into the idea of doing an EP, but we wanted to do it as a split and get someone else involved. And so initially, I think it wasn't meant to be Palm Reader initially, but whatever band it was couldn't for whatever reason. And so we ended up asking the guys, and they were down for it, managed to get their covers out in time, and they're both great, to be fair to them. And so, yeah, Holy Roar put it out, and it's not something anybody asked for, but there you go. Yeah,
well, Holy Roar do seem to be, again, very similar to Conjurer. You sort of see the similarities with them, where they're sort of building a name for themselves in the industry and doing sort of different things like that, because that's quite a different sort of thing to do, and to do the collaboration as well. They seem to be doing things that not a lot of other labels are doing, getting the bands to work together and support each other and do that.
Yeah, definitely. And we've benefited from their rise as much as we'd hopefully like to think they've benefited from any attention we've brought to the label. But no, you're right. I think part of the reason we've worked so well together, even since the first EP that the guys put out before I joined, is because there's a lot of similar ideals, and we're great friends and get along with the team over there, Alex and Justine and everyone. And so I think it's very much why it works, is because we're doing the same thing in essentially a different way, but it works, and people seem to be reacting to it at the moment. So no reason to stop.
Yeah, because there's always a big sort of debate of the unsigned bands as to whether self-signed bands, as they call it, rather put it out of sales, and you get horror stories of bands being tied into something they don't want to be tied into, or being restricted in doing things that they want and that lot. But I obviously get the sense with Holy Roar that you're very happy with their input, and it's a really good partnership rather than one telling the other what they're doing.
Yeah, that's basically exactly what it is. Our current deal with Holy Roar is write an album and we'll put it out. So we haven't got them in our emails every week going, send us demos, what have you got, you need to do this, you need to change that. It's very much take your time, no rush. They've got plenty of other projects and bands they're working on. And so it's a case of, when we're not on a multi-year deal or anything like that, a multi-album deal where we're locked in for the foreseeable future. It's very much album by album, take it as we go, and that seems to have been working out safe for both of us at the moment. We're super happy with it. Hopefully they are too. And so we'll turn in a hopefully a good album. We'll put it out and go from there.
Yeah, I mean, from the interviews I've done over the last few years, this has got a very sort of 80s thrash vibe to it. It's got, bands used to do splits with each other back then if they're on the same label.
Yeah.
And labels used to just give bands, there you go away, make the album, come back when you do. Whereas from what I can gather from the other interviews that I've had, most other labels there's a schedule, there's a time scale, and you have got that pressure to actually sort of do it. Whereas it sounds from what you've said, I mean that's like what bands are telling me it was like back in the 80s, where the label had so many bands, they were just like, yeah, you go away, make an album, they should just trust you to come back with an album, give you X amount of money to hire your studio and do whatever you need, and then you just come back when you've got it. So there definitely do seem to be sort of a bit of a reboot on that side of things.
Yeah, like you say, from knowing other bands within the scene and talking stuff, it definitely can go either way, depending on who you're working with and how fortunate you are, and obviously how much faith they have in you as a band. But no, we've been very lucky. Say it's always been like that with Holy Roar, and then Nuclear Blast are the exact same. For the next album, it's very much a case of no rush, give it to us when it's done, and we'll put it out. We've not been set a deadline. The only deadlines we've got are ones we're setting for ourselves, just because we want to, get something out and kind of keep the train rolling, essentially. And because we've been playing these songs for, 2.5 years now, so we're not quite getting bored, but we're itching to have new stuff to play as well.
Yeah. You mentioned the Nuclear Blast there as well, so obviously that's on the American side of things, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So it's Holy Roar for UK and Europe, and then Nuclear Blast for US and the rest of the world.
That must be absolutely massively helpful. I mean, you must have been when you get in those sort of connections, because I mean, no disrespect, Holy Roar, but when a big label like Nuclear Blast is interested in you and wants to sign you up, then that's got to be a massive surprise to you guys.
It was honestly, it was a little bit ridiculous. Even just hearing anyone was interested was kind of crazy. But then Monty Connor, who's kind of our guy over there, he's the guy who originally signed like Slipknot when he was back at Roadrunner and that sort of thing. So it's not like we're being picked up by just anyone at Nuclear Blast. People who we respect and admire for their whole careers are interested in our band, and that's still kind of crazy to wrap our heads around. And it's going to be even crazier when the album's actually done and we can give it to them, and then we see it released and it's got a little Nuclear Blast logo to it and that sort of thing, rather than it just being we've done a Facebook post at the moment, but other than that, we've still got to actually get the album done.
I say it is difficult for me, for having known you guys for so long, and it is absolutely great to see you doing so well. As I say, the Metal to the Masses connection for me personally as well. You're going to be playing on the main stage. I think you're only the third Metal to the Masses band that I can think of. I think Bloodshot, Dawn, and Cambion are the other two that have gone through Metal to the Masses, Sophie, and then main stage as well. So proper sort of poster boys for the Metal to the Masses process, really, because that's it. That's what bands want to be doing. You want to be playing main stages. You want to be playing festivals. Yeah,
absolutely. And like I say, I wasn't in the band at the time, but I went to all the different heats, and I remember going to the final at Uprising. And yeah, it's definitely for any like younger bands who have aspirations to play, main stage Bloodstock and all of that. It's definitely one route to it. The only thing that, if you can only think of 3 bands that have ever done it that way, it's if I had to say anything to bands trying to do it, is you have to make sure that you're working hard and putting quality output outside of that as well. Just winning to Metal to the Masses will absolutely, get you to the New Blood stage, and that's a foot in the door, but then you have to work after that as well. Just from winning Metal to the Masses won't get you to main stage, but like you say, it's absolutely a good start.
Yeah, the way we sort of describe it is a springboard for bands, because a lot of bands, obviously, when you've gone through the Metal to the Masses, especially if you've been trying for like 2, 3, 4 years. We had at one band 7 years they'd been doing Metal to the Masses before they actually won and got onto the New Blood. But a lot of bands will just be sort of like, oh, phew, thank goodness for that. But that should be where the hard work really starts, because that's when you're getting a big audience, and that's when you're getting that springboard. And the likes of yourselves, there's the guys in 10 Ton Slug I always mention that have played like Metal Days and things like that on the back of it. And there are bands that you can sort of see are ready to sort of grasp that opportunity at Bloodstock. They get their press out there, they make sure that they're giving out whatever they can get to make sure that people come to see them in the New Blood tent, because that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. We'd still get people who say, "Oh, first time I saw you was at Bloodstock on the New Blood stage," and so it's very much what you do after that. Like you say, winning Metal to the Masses in whatever city or whatever is great, and congratulations for doing that. But at that point you can't rest on your laurels, because that's just not a career. That, like you say, that's very much a starting point, and that's when the work begins. Yeah. Because you've been given that platform, you've been given the New Blood stage, one of the most popular metal festivals in the world, and so make the most of it, play the best gig you can on that day. But then what do you do after that? You need to make sure, if you're writing an album, if you're writing songs, that they can be the best songs possible. Get out there, tour is everything now. Even stuff like merch. We're very fortunate that lots of people seem to like our merch, and so going around a Bloodstock festival, you'll see Conjurer shirts and that sort of stuff. So yeah, absolutely use Metal to the Masses as a starting point and to, get your foot in the door, but be prepared to work hard afterwards, because that will get you to the New Blood stage. But after that, if you don't put the effort in and be the best band you can, Bloodstock have there's no contract that's saying they have to bring you back ever again.
Yeah, exactly, and that's it, and that is what it is. The bands that do come back are bands that have done that and have got themselves out there. But Bloodstock will offer them the opportunity. That's what I like about it, and it's just like they will keep tabs on them. Some festivals will just sort of like we've got our newbies little area over here, and that's it. They play once, and we don't really bother with them again. So I have to say, how are you guys coping with all this in yourselves? Because obviously, I interviewed yourself and Dan at Bloodstock, and you came across really, really well. And obviously, you must be getting more and more used to doing the press and that sort of thing. But obviously, every now and again, when it's just the 4 of you in a room, you must get moments when you're like, you've done tours in America, you played this festival, you played Download, you must just have a little moment where you're just sort of thinking, is this actually really happening here?
Surprisingly, when it's the 4 of us in a room, not so much, unless we're deliberately like discussing the facts, like Nuclear Blast or first US tour. Like every now and again we'll have kind of moments where like, oh yeah, this is a little mental. But if anything, when the four of us are in a room, that's where it feels the most normal.
Okay.
Just because that's what we do every week anyway. You know, we turn up, we practice the songs, make sure we're tight, especially before tours and stuff. If we've had a little bit of time off, and that's almost where we feel more comfortable. It's outside of that, which is when it actually starts to sink in, and you start, like you say, you start to realise that a lot has happened, and we have been very fortunate, and almost, I guess, when you've got the more time to reflect personally rather than as a group, is when it sinks in. I think we're all taking to it okay, and I think part of that is due to how much people kind of buy into it. So I know, for example, Jan, the drummer, in the nice way possible, doesn't really care. Like, he's not in it for fame or anything like that. He just wants to put out an album that he loves, and if he gets to tour off the back of it, then great. He's never been in this, kind of like any of us, but he's very much a hermit and lives at home anyway. Doesn't leave his house unless he has to, sort of thing. So when it comes to press and all of that, I don't think it phases him that much.
Yeah.
Whereas the rest of us are a little more social, and so we see that sort of side of it.
Yeah.
And I think we've been okay just because it has been a bit of a sudden rise. It's not been necessarily overnight. So it's not like, you know, we released one single and then the next day we're main stage Bloodstock or anything like that. We've had, you know, tours and different, like say, different levels of festivals and all that sort of stuff to build us up, so that when stuff like this does happen, although we still have to reflect on it a little bit, it's not daunting to the point where we don't think we can do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does. And so you mentioned touring there a bit. So again, more and more interviews that I've done, a lot of people think, you know, oh, that'd be great fun, but it's hard work, isn't it? It's very tiring.
Yep.
You don't often get a chance to actually hang out in any of the places that you're at. You know, you're with the same people for a certain amount of time and that. So how are you lot finding that? How are you guys finding touring?
A similar sort of thing, to be honest. I think for the most part, well, and I think we have adapted to it, but it's not that we weren't like that from day one. And so there's been learning curves along the way. The first one in America was a big learning curve, just because that first one, I think we ended up playing roughly around 38 shows, and the longest tour we'd done before that was 9. And so just something like that, jumping to having to do that many shows in a row, and how then, okay, so the guys have to look after their voices more and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And just being in a completely different country and continent away from, you know, your family and all of that, and how you have to handle yourself, dealing with merch and all that sort of stuff. That one was a big learning curve. And I guess there's little things you take away from each tour, because like you say, it's not a holiday by any means. As much as we're very fortunate to see a lot of the world, and maybe a lot more of the world than we would if we weren't in a touring band, it's not like you get 2 nights at each city to go and explore and take in all the sites and do all the tourist stuff. For the most part, you'll see the 6 blocks on the way into the city, and then you'll get to wherever the venue is, you'll see the venue, and then you'll leave and go to the next place.
Yeah.
And especially at the moment, a lot of what we do, although we have got a great team behind us, a lot of what we do is still very DIY.
Yeah.
So for example, when we're on tour, I'm in charge of merch. So when we get in, you know, we'll find the dressing room, but then I'll have to dump my bags, and I've got to set up merch and count and do restocks and all of that. So not that I mind, I'd rather, I'm enjoying doing it. But when you say about stuff like not getting a chance to hang out,
yeah,
that's very much the case. It's like, it is a work. When we're on tour, we effectively do longer work days than when we're just doing our regular jobs.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that wouldn't change it for anything. Like, I love being on tour.
Yeah.
So although yeah, you would like people to understand that it's not a holiday by any means, that's not complaining. It's still probably the best part about being in this band, you know, getting to tour and getting to play all these incredible venues and shows and meet all these amazing bands and fans and everything. You know, that's very much why we do it outside of the music, and I hope that it long continues.
Yeah. You mentioned about you've all got jobs as well. So I found, again, talking to bands, and especially the up-and-coming bands, and almost like bands that, you know, weekend, they'll maybe go and do a couple of gigs at a weekend, and then they've got to go back to the day job on the Monday. I've found that that can create a lot of mental health issues and things like that, where you get that sort of drop where you're like, you're almost like that sort of weekend rock star, and then you've got to go back to the drudge of it on a Monday. Those highs and those lows are quite dramatic. So I should imagine, if you're doing big tours like that as well, how does that fit in with your working lives as well, and how have your employers been with, obviously you have to take the time to go and do those tours as well?
Yeah. And you're absolutely right that like post-tour blues is very much a real thing. Different people cope with it in different ways. I absolutely get it. And especially after doing it, like take America as an example again, like touring America was always a childhood dream. Like we took that tour because it was a once in a lifetime thing. We might never get the opportunity again. And so we went out, we did it. It was successful for us, enjoyed it so much, to then be at work like a day or two after landing again, like was legitimately horrible. Not because I don't enjoy my job or anything like that, but it's not tour.
Yeah, of course.
And so you're absolutely right. Like there is a drop is a very good way to describe it. But that's also one of the things where it does get a little easier, I guess, the more you do it and the more you kind of get used to being away and then coming back. And in terms of work, I think at the moment, at least, we're all doing okay and we're all very fortunate. Brady's been able to transition into kind of freelancing. He manages bands now.
Yeah, I saw that. He's joined Lulu at Incendia, hasn't he? So yeah, I saw that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So he's able, if anything, he works on tour now. So I guess he's got less of a drop. Dan works for his family business, and they've been super supportive in being able to give him time off, and you go tour, and when you're back, come to work and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Where I work, they've been great with it so far. I did officially have to quote unquote leave to go do our second American tour. We just did in September, but then they've hired me back.
Okay, I get you.
And it's been great so far. So it's kind of seeing how long I can keep that going. But at the end of the day, they're a business. There are very few jobs I think set up for musicians in that sense that aren't freelance, where you can come and go as you please. Or if anyone knows of one, then please let me know.
Yeah, exactly, because that's the thing, because that's what a lot of people don't see. The fact that you are still all working and you are still doing this, and when people see you on stage, they just think that's it, that's your life, you're a rock star. But that's not necessarily the case with with a lot of the up and coming bands, and even a lot of the bigger bands as well. Being a full time musician is not a lot of people get to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when, in terms of the whole music industry shift we're seeing at the moment, where touring is so much more important, and touring and merch is how bands make their money. Like that means you have to go out and tour if you want your band to be successful, or if that's what you want to do for the rest of your life. But that also means, touring is away from work.
Yeah.
And so at the moment, Conjure are very fortunate where there's only been a couple of times we've had to put our own money into it, but then luckily we've managed to pay all that back now. But we still don't take a wage from Conjure or anything like that. So if we do a tour and it goes well, great. Say Conjure makes however much money, that money just stays in the band and is used to buy the next batch of merch and all that stuff. So
yeah, I get you.
Yeah, although we're very fortunate where the band is now at a point where it can pretty much sustain itself. We still need to work outside of that, and like you say, like it's great being able to go on tour and be a quote unquote rock star for 4 weeks at a time, but when you come back, you have to go back to a day job and earn your money that way, just to be able to survive outside of living, or you need to make money to survive on tour when you're not at work.
Yeah, so that drop thing, as I say, that I do wonder. I know that it's said quite a lot about, any walk of life, people can suffer with mental health, but I have noticed a lot in the musicians thing, and I'm just sort of wondering if there's any, almost like a musicians only helpline sort of thing, where, do you think that there would be a call for that sort of thing? Do you think it gets that sort of bad, or?
I think for some people it probably does, unfortunately. But like you say, it's a thing that happens across every aspect of life, but musicians definitely, just because I know people who tend to have a more creative mindset have those sorts of issues anyway.
Yeah.
And then when you add on the real world pressures of some people don't handle touring itself that well just because of the traveling and all that sort of stuff. Some people don't like that, but they like playing the shows, and so that makes it worth it. Or whether it's the flip side of it, where, people love touring, but then hate the day job they have to make it feasible, that sort of thing. yeah, there's tons of like push and pull and mental health things you have to kind of put yourself through.
Yeah.
And so if there was any way for there to be a helpline, then I can't see how that would be in any way a bad thing. Even not looking at our level, like looking at people like Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, all of that sort of people. Like these are what you would consider legitimate rock stars. Like they were fortunate to make this a career. They had what a lot of us would consider the dream, but they still had their own mental health issues that they were fighting, which, like you say, suggests that it's not all what you see on TV. And so any support we can offer people, talking as a musician, but also, I guess, just as a human being, then the more we can offer, the better. Because we're all coming from this as, like, we're all fans at some point and still are. And so we all want bands to be out there touring and releasing music and artists and being able to, make a living, that sort of stuff. And so, we don't want anyone's mental health to get in the way of doing that.
Yeah, it's just become a lot more, as I say, with those sort of high profile suicides and that you do worry about it a little bit, and I just wonder about you guys in a band sort of checking in on each other and things like that, because you cannot when you look about the high profile ones and stuff like that, that's situations where the other band members are just like we didn't know, we had no idea that things were getting that bad and that. So I think that's sort of got to start within the band really, where you're checking with each other, and then obviously you've got the support outside that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, it's just speaking for Conjure, I can't talk for any other band, but we're not, in terms of just how we are as mates and that sort of stuff, we're not going to get in the van at the end of every night and go, right, is everyone okay, that sort of thing. But
okay.
We have had instances where, like, again, before that first US tour, where people going, oh God, I don't know if I want to do this, I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle it, and that sort of stuff, where we did have to take a step back and have talks about that sort of thing and say, look, if we think this isn't right for any of us, then we should talk about it and decide that now. Because, like you say, if someone is worrying and is having those thoughts about, those anxieties about doing anything related to the band, whether it's touring, writing, just any aspect of it, you don't want to force someone to do that, and then that have a knock-on effect, essentially. Like you say, if you can start local, essentially, and kind of nip those things in the bud and make sure everybody is comfortable and okay, then hopefully you would think going forward things would be okay, or a little more manageable at least.
Okay, cool. So talk about a bit more about the positive side of touring and that sort of thing. What's the what bits have you really enjoyed about it the most, and which places have you found that you, maybe in America, that you just sort of thought, well, I've never even really heard of this place, but oh my God, that was amazing. What were the plus points for you?
Yeah, I mean, and there are loads. So I love touring. The social side of it, I think, is a personal one for me. We're at Conjurer specifically are at a point where we've started to put together a crew where we can afford to take a sound engineer out and a lighting guy, and it's not just they're not following us in a car behind the van, like they're in the van and they're some of our best mates. And so as much as it is still work, and we were saying earlier that it's not a holiday, it does help for being in a van with your mates when you're all getting along, like that's great. And that is very even if you want to say from a mental health perspective, that is very uplifting, and that does help. Yeah. If it was just the four of us in a van miserable, then that would be rubbish. But it's not. Say we all still enjoy each other's company. We've got a great crew and team behind us who are able to take around to all these amazing different places. Like say, getting to see so much of America where you've heard of it, but in terms of actually seeing what it's like, it's great. Trying to think where else has been really good. Actually, there's been a few. Europe's always lovely. The way they look after you out there is great. Obviously, without getting too political, that might have its own complications going forward. Yeah. But the hospitality in Europe's always great, so we love going over there and being able to enjoy playing to those fans as well. The shows are the main thing. Obviously, that's why we do it. And we're very fortunate where we're getting to the point now where we are getting to play like good shows. Because even the first time we went over to somewhere like Europe and you end up playing in these little dingy basements to 15 people, that's still great and that's still what we enjoy. But we're lucky enough now where we are able to jump on tours and play shows where we're getting a bit of a turnout, and that just, there's very few things that are as good as playing like a good show and having a good crowd reaction. And so there's so much of tour that's enjoyable. Like I say, I take care of merch at the moment, and I personally enjoy that. I like being able to talk to people after the show, and if they want to pick up merch, well, perfect. We're very thankful for that. But just getting to meet people, and even if it is just the typical, bloke, oh, good set, mate, like, thank you. I enjoy that side of it as well.
Yeah, and you say you've got a European tour coming up in March, haven't you, with Car Bomb? So
yes,
heading out there again soon.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
On your allegedly quiet year, you seem to be quite busy,
right?
Mate.
yeah, we said that, and we said we'd have a year off just because we're not good at writing on tour at all. We just can't do it.
Okay.
And we're very jealous of any bands who can.
Yeah.
Our writing style is very much at home, over the internet, get into a room and jam it when we think it's ready, that sort of thing. So writing on tour, we just don't have any time to fit it into the schedule. And so we specifically said, we need to take a year off. We want to get this album done. We'll obviously do festival season. And then, if a tour offer comes through and it's a good one, okay, maybe we'll do a tour just so we don't go crazy, basically being all cooped up in our room, stuck in album mode. And so we got the offer through for the Insomnium tour. We just done the UK, and that was okay. Fair enough. That's some nice rooms, and that was on a tour bus, which was lovely. That was the first time we'd ever been on a tour bus, so we decided we'd take that. And then the other thing we kind of thought we needed was a decent European support tour, because any times we've been over, other than for the odd festival, has been as headliners. Like I say, we're very fortunate that that's getting better, but we felt like we needed a slightly better support tour just to kind of get our name out there. And so when Car Bomb very graciously offered us that slot, we were like, yeah, go on then, we can do one.
Yeah, squeeze it in.
Yeah, exactly.
But you've got it's like Germany, Austria, Hungary. I'm assuming there's places there that you've not played before, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, a lot of them, Spain's, Italy's, those sorts of places, we've not been able to get to yet. So that was another part of the appeal for doing it. It was, well, it's not like we're just going around the same places we've just done 2 months prior.
Yeah,
but this is new territory for us, and so we'd love to do it. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I hope that goes well. And of course, the other exciting news that you've got going on as well is that you're in another band as well now. So
yeah.
So Silosis, how did that come about?
That was really weird, actually. My side of it, at least, is I literally woke up one morning, checked my phone, and I had a message on Instagram from Josh, which was, I don't know, just a little bit weird, because I, at the time, didn't have any idea that he knew who I or Conjure even were.
Right.
And so it was a little bit daunting to, see the notification at Josh Architects sent you a message. But no, it was very much just a case of, a nice message saying, hey mate, fan of Conjurer, looking for a bassist for Silosis if you'd be interested. Said absolutely, because why wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
And it's all just kind of been go from there. All the guys are great. We just had the comeback show earlier this month, which went down really well. Like, all the rehearsals for that were great, and it's just been really pleasant so far.
Yeah. So how did that? Did you have to have a conversation with the Conjurer guys about that as well, about fitting that in, and how does that work when you're? I mean, I know that there are some band guys that are in two bands and manage to juggle it well enough, but that's often where they're not going on tours and doing things like that. So when you've got two bands, is it going to be a lot for you to juggle? And how did that conversation go?
I mean, to be honest, there wasn't too much of a conversation about it. Like, they were very supportive of it, and were like, well, yeah, obviously you should if you want to. And then, like you say, in terms of the schedule juggling at the moment, Silosis, as much as it would be great to do loads of stuff with them, like Josh is going to be busy with Architects. Ali, the drummer, plays from in Bleed From Within, and so the kind of thing with Silosis in general is it's people's quote unquote main bands come first. And if we can fit Silosis in and around that, then that's the plan. So that's how it's worked currently with the comeback show, and we've got a couple of festival dates coming up. And then in terms of tours and that, there's nothing booked. But if we can, like say, if we can fit it in the schedule and everyone's available to do it, then great.
Yeah, of course, because they are also playing on the main stage on the Saturday.
Yes,
so you're going to be
they are.
So you're not only going to be playing, Bloodstock main stage. You're going to be playing it twice on the same day, mate.
Yeah, that's going to be tiring. Is probably the word I'll pick.
Yeah,
but that was interesting just because no one told me. I saw the announcement as it went up on Facebook, the same as everyone else.
Amazing.
And if I hadn't even read the text properly, I just happened to be looking at the poster and saw the Silosis logo and went, hang on. And so, yeah, thank God it's on the same day. But no, that's going to be, again, that's kind of mental to even be playing main stage once, but to get it to do it twice, then
yeah,
absolutely,
not just main stage, not just once, but twice and on the same day.
It is a little weird, and I say it'll be tiring, but I think by the time adrenaline and excitement gets pumping, I'll only be tired afterwards, and the next day maybe.
Yeah, well, we'll make sure you come and have a chat to us at Bloodstock TV afterwards, so that you can tell us how that double shift went. Because so there's probably not many people who've done that, to be honest. I mean, I think there are people that have played, in different bands across the weekend, but yeah, I think that's probably going to be fairly unusual anyway. So yeah, we'll see how you
cool.
are.
Happy to be setting a record.
So any other bands that are playing at Bloodstock that you're looking forward to seeing outside of your own duties that you've got?
Yeah, there are. One of the most recent ones that just got announced is our friends in a band called Baylor. I think they're opening up the Sophie stage on the Saturday. Yep. So logistics might mean that I can't catch the entirety of their set, but I would very much like to get some of it, go and support the boys. We did a tour over in Ireland with them last year, and they're great guys. So there's them. They're the first ones. I think Skindred are there. Well, obviously all the headliners: Devon Townsend, Judas Priest, Behemoth. Yeah. Like those are the obvious ones. There's a reason they're headlining, but Skindred are there, and they're always a good time. I think Svalbard are playing as well.
They are.
Yep, Holy Raw again, friends. So it'd be good to see them. I think Ginger are playing. It'd be cool to check them out. Paradise Lost would be cool.
Cool. As long as there's plenty to keep you busy, mate. I'm assuming you'll be joining us for the weekend as usual. I'm assuming, hopefully.
Yep, hopefully. I'd say I don't have any other plans at the moment, but life gets in the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's pretty much all I've got for you at the moment, mate. So, thanks for your time. Great catching up with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll play out with some music. We're going to end with Thankless. So, we'll see you at Bloodstock later in the year, mate. Cheers for that.
See you there.
Okay, cheers. That's Connor from Conjurer, and this is Thankless.
So much, one cup of
festival news.
Okay, that was the awesome Conjurer there with Thankless. And I am not thankless, I am extremely thankful for Connor's time there. And of course, I am massively excited to see both Conjurer and Silosis on that main stage later this year. Okay, so next up, we're just going to bring you a little bit of festival news, as a fair few things have happened since the last podcast. So firstly, we have announced a new charity partner for 2020. That is the mental health charity Mind. And we'll also have a massively enthusiastic chap called Michael Lacey bringing his Patch Amnesty to the festival. I know him from Primordial Radio and a few other bits and bobs. And he's raised a lot of money already. Money does go to Mind. And if you want to find out more about Patch Amnesty, then you can find them on Facebook. In other news, Bloodstock has also been shortlisted for the Best Festival yet again in the Heavy Music Awards, and that is a category that we won last year, so we would very much like to win that again. So please do take the time to head over to vote, and that is at vote.heavymusicawards.com. Stick us a vote in the Best Festival section there. I will warn you that you will actually be forced to vote in all the categories, so just a few quick cheeky mentions to a couple of other Bloodstock related nominees. So in Best Photographer, we have Sabrina Ramdoyal, who is always in the press tent at Bloodstock and does some great work there. And in the Best Album Artwork, if you check out the Venom Prison album, you will see that it was done by Eliran Cantor, who we had in the Ram Gallery at Bloodstock in 2017. We interviewed him for Bloodstock TV, and I've stayed in touch with him as well. He's just the nicest guy, and he is an absolutely incredible artist. He did the Wild Hearts cover last year. He's done the upcoming Testament album Titans of Creation and the upcoming Hatebreed album cover too. I'm not sure that's been officially announced yet, but Jamie Jaster let it slip on his podcast last week, so I'm pretty sure that he'll be fine with us mentioning it here. Okay, so moving on, we also had a Facebook Live session on the same night as the last podcast, where Adam and Vicky announced that we're going to be having a gaming area at Bloodstock 2020. That's going to be run by Nordic Spirit. And they also announced that we're going to be having our second live meet and greet Q&A session this year. That is taking place in Derby on Saturday, March the 14th, and I think we've possibly still got a few spaces left for that. So check the Bloodstock socials, as there are some conditions involved. You need to have gone to Bloodstock in the last couple of years and things like that. But it would really be great to see a room full of you all again, the same as we had last year. And just like last year, it's going to all be videoed again and put out on our YouTube channel. And I'm just going to play you quickly a little section from last year. So have a quick listen to this, get this year's lineup in front of you, and then ask yourself if Bloodstock really do listen to what the fans want to see at the festival.
You know, a question I'd like to ask anyone that's here, and I know this is just going to get a wall of noise probably, but are there any bands that haven't played, or are there any bands that you'd like to see return?
Clutch, Sugar, Borzone, Sacred Brian,
Necrogoblicon.
Yeah. The Blue Side of the Moon project?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
In Flames.
Yeah?
It's been a long time.
Devin?
Yeah.
Keep them coming. I mean, you know, it is interesting to see a sort of consensus on what people want, you know?
Halloween.
Orange Goblin.
I didn't know it was coming from you. Orange Goblin?
Orange Goblin. Bloody Wood.
Dying Feet.
Yeah, Bloody Wood. Are they actually gigging?
Yeah, I've seen them actually starting to do festivals.
They've got one plan.
You know, because they're ideas that you wouldn't necessarily get at a lot of festivals. So, but they're ideas that we take on board, definitely.
Yes, indeed. Simon Hall there at last year's meet and greet. And I reckon there were probably about 6 or 7 bands mentioned there that we've now got on the 2020 lineup. So never let it be said that we don't listen to the fans. And if you're coming to this year's event in Derby, then you should definitely be ready and waiting with your band wish list. Okay, so we're going to finish off this week's show with some music from one of the 2020 bands that we mentioned earlier as having been announced. Connor mentioned them in that interview there as well. They are from Cork in Ireland. They are playing the Sophie stage on the Saturday. This is a track called Crawl Back, and this is Baylor. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you next time on Bloodstock Radio.
Band announcements.
Take
fans, for the fans. Bloodstock Radio.